I'm super excited to be here, and I'm going to move that in just a second. Alrighty, can you hear me? Awesome, thanks. I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't nervous. This is the first time I've ever done something like this, so that's another huge milestone for Rachel. Yep. So I'm gonna try, because I'm just not tech savvy, and I'm a dork, so when I mess up, I get all dorkish and go, oh my goodness, I know what I'm doing. So we're gonna try, but if not, I'll signal for my slides if I need to. Thank you again for allowing me space to talk today. My name is Rachel Karim Felton, and I am a mental health professional within the state of Washington. I have my master's in social work, and I've been practicing in mental health since 2013 when I graduated and I just jumped right into the field like a lot of us do. I'm originally from the Midwest. My birth state is Michigan, and yes, we do use the hand to show where we are from. And I'm from the Southeast area, Metro Detroit area. As much as I am nervous, and I hope I'll shake those off in a few moments, I am extremely excited to talk about this. This is a very passionate topic for me, and it's something that really impacts a lot of what we do. And I think that there's so much that we can grow and evolve and learn from each other. And so I wanted to give a few disclaimers just before I kind of dive into my slides, just because of time, and I'm going to kind of gloss over some of the definitions just because I really want to get into some of the nuts and bolts of my point. And a lot of that is my story. I have the pleasure of this opportunity, and I did not realize I was going to kind of be the precursor to the end of the day, which is not a bad thing. But I also didn't realize I was going to be opening for like the stories of hope. So I do kind of want to share my story and lead into that clinical side of just giving those strategies and just suggestions. I also want to say this is definitely a beginning conversation. It's not, we're not going to go through every little thing regarding BIPOC, LGBTQ plus, and all the intricate parts and complexities of identity. We just don't have the time. I love to, which I will have my contact information at the end of the slides. I definitely want to continue the conversation with everyone and with anyone, because it's definitely something that I love to talk about, and I love to share and to help everyone evolve and grow. All right. To begin, and I will try to catch myself if I move away, so just be patient with me. I usually can tell if nobody can hear me, right? So, alrighty. All right. By the end of this talk, we will acknowledge what it means to be an individual who identifies with both minority groups, BIPOC and LGBTQ+, conceptualize the intersection of BIPOC and LGBTQ+ identities, which creates spaces in the human experience that may lead to an individual to actively seek comfort through addiction. Discuss the importance of strategic communication, connection, and community in which BIPOC and LGBTQ folks can safely be their true selves, create space for people to begin to heal systemic wounds individually and as a collective to foster, achieve, and maintain recovery. It's a huge, huge point. All right. When looking at a person from a holistic perspective, there are many things to consider. When we're looking at BIPOC populations, we are including Black, Indigenous, people of color, also African, Latinx, Arab, Asian, and Native American populations. The connection between BIPOC and mental health and LGBTQ is very significant. I pulled some statistics here. There are a few other sources and a few other numbers that might be a little bit more updated, but based off of 2020, nearly 53 million people were estimated to have a mental illness in America, North America. Out of this number, 24.3 million received mental health services. The stats that I found were that 51% were white, 37.1% were Black or African American, 35% were Hispanic or Latino, and 20% identified as Asian. The connection between not just where we come from and who we are and born into, but also our other identities is also a huge thing to consider, especially when talking about mental health and substance use and recovery. It's significant because it shows that 37% of LGBTQ+ individuals identify with a mental health condition. We go down, we see that Native and Indigenous populations, it goes down to 23%. Multiracial goes down to 25%. Black and African American go down to 17%, and Latinx and Hispanic go down to 15%. I don't think it's going to be shocking when I say that almost all those individuals are at high risk for also having a substance use condition. There's so much perspective to the vulnerabilities in place that I think I'm speaking to the choir, especially with listening to the great panels and the great conversations that we're having, that these statistics probably aren't news to you. I want to take a second to talk about the essence of being a human. Kind of, it's more than just our identities of who we're born into. And when I say that, I'm talking about the aspect that we all begin somewhere. We are human beings, we're species, we begin at birth, we evolve as we grow, we conceptualize the meaning of our lives and how we see the world around us. Each of us will create a perspective of who we are not, and everything in between. Intergenerational beliefs, schemas, and messaging influenced by generations before us will influence and promote vulnerability to addiction if healing does not occur. Intergenerational traumas are very real, and it's something I think we all need to consider in our lives and our individual journeys. When thinking about intergenerational experiences which aid in the building of schemas and messaging, we cannot forget the harm that these groupings of individuals have endured due to the white supremacy messaging and the history that involves genocide and slavery. I also picked these images because I feel like they really did capture a lot of kind of the essence of our evolution, that we are more than just one entity of being a person, and that we are built on a lot of the messages that we do have, and a lot of it is actually really great. It's just that we have to be mindful when we have other things going on that influence us. Here is probably my most vulnerable slide. This is where I kind of put the nuts and bolts together of who Rachel is today. I don't think I could do this 10 years ago. Even though I was a beginning clinician, I was active in addiction. And my addiction was complicated. It wasn't just substances. A lot of it was learned behaviors, a lot of it was relational, and ultimately a lot of it left me very vulnerable. But today, Rachel Karim Felton gets to reclaim that recovery and reclaim who I am. No, thank you. Thank you. On the first end, I'm going to start with my identity as an Arab American. I do have a conceptualization I wrote out, and I will read because I was very mindful with it. And I want to, as I'm reading it out loud, I just want folks to just think about being a third-generation Arab American. My grandfather, my grandparents, they immigrated over from Ramallah, Palestine, so I'm Palestinian. And my mom is going to be very instrumental in my life, and she still is. But she carried along that intergenerational schema messaging, and she also had her own lens and her own things that really did cause a lot of heartache, and it was just really hard. I, as you know, I'm a social worker. I work at Crisis Connections, which we'll talk a little bit about at the end, and just the work that we're doing to help build some of the community, and we're helping to plant seeds and help folks grow in crisis. But I also want to just highlight that I'm a recovery claiming individual. I was talking to some of my friends about this, and they were just like, that's very interesting language. And I also thought that was kind of interesting that they said that, because I think that it's really important to be a working professional who has gone through a lot of things, but is coming out the other end and claiming themselves again. And it really does start with you. I am spiritually minded, and I'm not going to be able to talk too much about that, but I do think spirituality in a sense of meaning and purpose is really important. I think that that's sometimes not missed, but we don't get comfortable talking about some of those things because there's so much to it, and everyone has the right to their perspective. But I did want to include that because it's very important in mine. And then the last N, which we'll kind of come together and talk about, and I'll be a little quick because of time, but is my identity as an LGBTQ individual. I do identify as non-binary, and I do identify as a part of the umbrella of LGBTQ+. And that does say a lot to who I am today, because it's been a long journey, and I haven't always been able to be as authentic and real in that because of my background and my upbringing. So I'm going to quickly kind of read through stuff, and we'll kind of get through to some of the nuts and bolts, but we'll get there. If you give me a few extra minutes, I do appreciate it. Alrighty. When I initially was provided this opportunity, I thought about how I wanted to talk about myself. I'll let you all in a little secret. I don't have a long-standing history of talking about myself in public. As you did here, which is real, I've never done this before. But also, when I was younger, I was more reserved and just trying to connect with the world around me, but there are facets of my identity that set me apart. I was born into a family that identifies as Palestinian American, and I, third generation, and I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. And I'm a grandchild of a well-respected individual who was very active and influential with the Arab American community. There are things we just did not talk about, and mainly it was gender, sexuality, mental health, and emotions. I want to preface this as my experience. Not every single family is like that, but I will say that with the work I've done and the people I've individually connected with, there are themes that I find. And a lot of it is that we don't have these conversations. They're done very differently, or they're done through lenses, and they're just a lot there. My mother had an intergenerational messaging and schemas she passed down to me. And the image of the idea is, do not have any problems. If you have problems, do not talk about them. I grew up with missing pieces of information because of the passing down of narratives. And when I was in my teenage years, I would become more distant from my heritage and try to adopt more of an American view of who I am. It did not take long for the distance to erode the influence of my grandfather, my mother, heritage values. I had other people in my life, but I didn't really see them as any sort of point of context because nobody really got me and nobody really got what I was going through. The choices that I started to make would awaken the pathways, and they start at 9, 10 years old. And I chose to, out of indulgence, compulsivity, because I had needs and I had emptiness before I even knew I had it, and an addiction came to form before I even realized it. And the addiction took a hold. It created a whole entity of itself. I became a different person, behaving and operating in a way that caused me to be divisive and become hateful to my family, friends. People really didn't know how to connect with me, and people didn't really know what to say. I became almost like the crazy person, but I had all these problems, but they just were unspoken. I had the experience I've heard from many clients, friends, peers, and colleagues from various backgrounds and upbringings that connect to being a part of the BIPOC umbrella. Our experiences of being set apart and perceived in a different way, or allow for pockets of vulnerability to develop. And we all choose to fill those pockets differently. Whatever we fill it with, though, we're doing it out of comfort. Primal brain, trying to survive, but ultimately we also do a lot of things in quiet and secret. The hard truth is that this behavior comes at a cost, and there's always a cost to everything we choose to do. The cost for me was time, money, relationships, took away my peace. It also did not foster family growth and understanding. I did not identify as Arab American. I was just American. Moving through the identities of who I am today, I want to highlight that I'm no longer just an American. I'm a social worker, I'm a recovery-claiming individual, spiritually minded, and identify as non-binary individual, and I'm very proud of that. I strongly believe in the power of just one person to create change in someone's life. And though I didn't speak a lot of him, that one person for me was my grandfather. My grandfather had a vision, and he created a supportive network for the Arab Americans in Dearborn, Michigan, specifically focused on creating a Ramallah clubhouse to foster and grow community within the Palestinian people to ensure generations remain connected and did not lose the sight of importance of our heritage and struggle. He connected with people using curiosity and language to unify and not divide. My grandfather was an immigration lawyer, and he used his gifts to help people. He helped many people during the span of his long-standing career, and the things he did implement in the region has lasting impacts even today. The networks he created help over 30,000 people stay connected in the Palestinian community nationwide. There are services in place in the regions that I grew up in that are founded by him and people that are like-minded, that cared more about the people and less about the politics. And I am really proud to be a part of his lineage, though I didn't think about that back then. My grandfather, one moment. He was a great person and held together the connection for many, including in my family. When he passed away in January of 2019, the world looked different for my family and his loss was felt. Thank you. The main reason I have 2 pictures of him here today are twofold. He's an example of a member of the BIPOC community who saw that his communities needed something and became actionary about it. He's an example of one person creating change for the collective by using communication, connection, and community to impact lives in his kinship, which is the Palestinian community. And in the second photo that has a group of individuals, he is the only person wearing glasses. I also share him for you guys today because I want to share how special this person was for me. And not just in my recovery, but in my existence. I swear, in some ways, he really did save my life. This person knew more about me than I ever shared with him, never made me feel like I was broken. His unconditional love and support for me planted seeds that would not take root and grow in his lifetime, but are very visible in my life today. I never shared my full journey with him, as he does not know who I am today, but he never made me feel like today would never come. His choice was never to alienate me, or even when he did not agree with the direction my life took at various times when I was younger, he kept me heading into the direction that makes today real. For this, I'm forever thankful. As we transition to the end of my talk, I want to provide that image of me picking up that torch of my grandfather's light and applying his vision to a new generation of people needing hope and unconditional love and acceptance. So we're gonna pass through. I picked this slide and I picked not to put a lot on it because I thought that the imagery on it is spectacular. The intersectionality of LGBTQ, the differing identities that is not all inclusive. There are many, many more beautiful people, but the pride, respect, community, the rights, the freedom, all that encompass that identity and that umbrella are just so impactful for me, but I like how it all comes together because I feel like that is a good picture of this umbrella. We cannot expect people to come forth and seek out healing and recovery if we do not provide them with a space to authentically express, explore, and evolve with unconditional curiosity and love. I shared briefly a little bit about myself to help us conceptualize the intersection of BIPOC and LGBTQ. I wanted to provide some ideas for each of us to take with us today. Because it's not just me, and it's not just you. It's everyone standing up together. The strategies that I came up with, they come from a basis of clinical mindfulness, but they also come from my experience. The aspect of communication, connection, community are just huge. I love metaphors. And the metaphor I build here is one of a community garden. We plant seeds with communication when we honor pronouns, when we ask with curiosity, when we don't assume and we respect what individuals' perspectives and preferences are. We connect when we water those seeds by talking to people with authentic connection, genuine love, admiration, respect, in spaces of healing, spaces of hope. Recovery is possible, but it also, kind of like we talked about in that panel, it's crucial for long-lasting sobriety and support, and it will breed into communities that are going to be fruitful. Like a community garden, they're gonna have fruit, they're gonna have beautiful flowers, and they're gonna allow people to share their diversity with everybody, not just those that are super close, but also people may not have that, and they need that, because I needed that, and I wouldn't be sober for 3.5 years without it. I wanted just to kind of sell home that hope comes with collectives. Hope comes with more than one person standing up and caring and loving on folks. And the combination of these two entities, this kind of twofold in these umbrellas, it doesn't just stop here, but this is a good example for my life, and hopefully to share with all of you today, that it just takes one person. It was just one person. And I don't know exactly why it was just one person, but I do know that he saved my life, and he showed me how I am to help others, which is why I'm so passionate about this. My work at Crisis Connections is also huge. To wrap things up, and I'm at time, but a lot of the work that we do is bridging and connecting and helping folks in crisis. All of our services are tied with crisis type of situations. I personally work in the crisis department, which does more of the clinical regional crisis lines, but I support and honor the work that we do on the recovery helpline, the 211, Teen Link, Warm Line, and 988. These are some of the references, and if you do reach out to me, I'm working on recommendation books for more further reading. I'm definitely considering creating more community spaces and just talking about these types of concepts. I do appreciate your time today. Thank you. Thank you.